Hi, my name is Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, but you probably know me as Mary Shelley. I was born August 30th, 1797 in London, England. William Godwin was my father, who was a philosopher and political writer, and Mary Wollstonecraft was my mother, who died shortly after I was born, and my father married Jane Clairmont, who bought her own two children and her own family later on had a son with Godwin. Still a little mad at that. I never got along with my stepmother. She decided that my stepsister Jane should be sent away to school, but saw no need for me to have an education. What the heck? Who would do that? Anyway, I made great use of her father's extensive library, and I was often found reading, sometimes even by my mother's grave. Now that I think about that, that's kind of a little creepy. I like to daydream, escaping from my often challenging home life into my imagination. I started to write during my pastime. I wrote stories and published my first poem, Monsieur Non Tong Pa, in 1807 through my father's company. During the late summer of 1812, I went to Scotland to stay with an acquaintance of my father, William Baxter, and his family. In 1814, I started a relationship with Percy Bysshe Shelley, a poet who was a devoted student of my father. Percy was still married to his first wife when I had fled England together and accompanied my stepsister Jane. That's quite a love triangle. While traveling about Europe for a time, we struggled financially and faced the loss of our first child in 1815. The following summer, Percy and I were in Switzerland with many others. We spent rainy days reading a book of ghost stories. I'm a ghost! It was suggested that we should all try writing our own horror stories. It was then when I began to work on my most famous novel, Frankenstein. Later that year, my stepsister Fanny committed suicide, although Percy's wife committed suicide a short time later. Percy and I got married in December of 1816, and I was very devoted to him, but I did not have the easiest marriage. The union was riddled with adultery and heartache, including the death of two more of our children. Our son Percy was the only child to live life to adulthood. Another tragedy happened in 1822 when my husband drowned while out sailing with a friend. I was made a widow at the age of 24 and had to work hard to support myself and my son. I wrote several more novels and died on February 1st, 1851 at the age of 53 due to brain cancer, and was buried the next to my mother and father and the remains of my husband's heart. And now here is my trailer for Frankenstein. It's a feature presentation.
I would say I was a normal child. When I was young, my mother died from scarlet fever, leaving me in Geneva, the town that I called my home, with my father and siblings. I was very interested in my studies of science and literature. I left my family to seek more knowledge on the subject, but it was the biggest mistake of my life. The pang of my mother's death pushed my studies deeper until I realized something. Why did death have to be the end of life? I began to construct the work of my thoughts, which led to the downfall of life as we know it. By the time I realized this creature was evil and wicked, it was too late. I thought going with the beast's demands would make him happy, but what would I be doing? I began to second-guess myself. What had I done? Would I be making the same mistake twice? But I guess the decision is up to you. Who was really the cause of this massive slaughter? Man or beast?